This is the Legislative Awards Banquet, and what we do is we honor those legislators who voted for family-friendly legislation during this past session. We give them a bust of Patrick Henry, and then those who don't get our top award, we still honor them with a certificate for what they've done. And it's been a very effective way of giving honor where honor is due, but at the same time encouraging them to look at the faith and family values that are important to all of us and support those things in the legislature. So,
Louisiana Family Forum is a 501c3 education and research organization, and we advocate on behalf of faith and family issues. So we're at the legislature getting to know the lawmakers, getting to know their policy positions, and providing policy papers or positions as it relates to the Christian community and the faith community, family issues. So our role is to be an advocate, a voice for traditional families.
Louisiana Family Forum is a Christian policy agency group, and it's the strongest family advocate in the state of Louisiana. There's about 38 policy groups across the country, and each group tries to do everything that they can to preserve the great values that our founding fathers both experienced and dictated for us. And so in our state, we try to do our best to bring those values back to our homes and back to our state.
Why is it so important for you to be involved in the Louisiana Family Forum?
Well, first of all, I'm a faith-based public servant, and I like to associate myself with like people who keep me on the straight and narrow. And secondly, I think it's important that we honor and acknowledge those who are willing to make those hard votes and make those hard choices and stand up and separate themselves from the masses. Now in this country is not a time to be timid, and we need strong leadership and faith-based, Christ-centered leadership. Yes.
I got involved with Family Forum about 12 years ago, and I tell people I had my business, and then I started having children, and life just got a lot more real to me. And I started paying more attention to what was going on, and I wasn't happy with what I saw happening to society. And I called Gene Mills, and we visited for a while, and one of the things that he told me was that you have to bring light into a darkened world, and when you do, when you bring that light, the darkness has to flee. And the fact is, if somebody doesn't go and stand up in the halls of government, then things happen, and people, so many can't tell the difference between legal and moral. And so you have to go stand for those moral things that matter, so that we can represent those faith and family values. Yeah.
Just about every issue has a voice at the Capitol, whether it's the shrimpers or the home builders or the district attorneys. And we find that families, in large part, for a long time, didn't have a formal, organized capacity by which they could register their concerns or the opportunities and weigh in at the Capitol. When we learned of that back in the late 1990s, we decided to start a family policy council. We're affiliated with Focus on the Family, and we learned how to create a Christian lobbying organization that allows for faith and family interests to be heard. It's called a Family Policy Council.
Should you win your election, what are you most looking forward to doing?
Well, when we win this election, I look forward to getting in there and fighting like crazy to support the faith and family values that we've fought for as Louisiana Family Forum. And it's just, I see this as another opportunity to fight at a different level. And I'm going to fight to do the other things too, like roads and economic development. And my passion is genuine leadership. Don't play games with people, and the things that I see go on that are just so disingenuous, it infuriates me. And so, but to be able to be involved at another level to fight for these faith and family values that matter so much to me is just, it means the world. And that's why I've invested so much in this race, and that's why we're working so hard and willing to go through what it takes to win this race. So.
Well, I think we all know that there are so many things that has put us in critical positions in America, but yet when you talk to the grassroots people still love our country and love the Lord. And I look forward to defending our religious freedom in this great state of Louisiana, working on great things like education reform, that we'll be able to see the light bulb come back on in the lives of children and in the lives of children. There's just nothing better than loving on children. It's one of those things that we find in the Bible. If you love a child, you know that you're close to the heart of the Lord.
What do you hope people will get from the Louisiana Family Forum?
Well, those who are new, I hope they would leave here with a renewed or a new appreciation for the importance of the core beliefs of this country and what it was founded on. And those who, like me, who have been here many years, get a renewal. And we also get to see, in real specific terms, who elected is towing the line, who is making those votes that make sure that our kids and our grandkids and those that come behind them will inherit a country that still has viability and Christian beliefs.
The legislators, we really hope that they are encouraged. They have to stand on the wall and they have to make votes count during each session of a state like Louisiana. So we hope they leave with great encouragement that people love them, respect them, and support them and honor them. But also those that are members of the LFF or their community leaders or pastors, we hope they come away with a little bit of hope that it's not all over for us here in America. We believe in our country. We believe in the standards and foundational values that God has given us, and we believe that our greatest days are ahead of us if we'll stick together. So hope and encouragement for those two groups would be a great way to exit tonight.
Tonight's a night of honor. Tonight's when we gather our lawmakers who actually voted with us, stood and gone to the mic, have expressed an opinion and or participated in something that was of importance. And tonight's a night that we value them for their principled position. Unlike other lobbying groups, we don't pass out money. We don't get involved in campaigns. We are interested in elections, and we try to educate, but what we do is relational. And so tonight's a night of opportunity for the general community who support us to come together and to meet the lawmakers tonight, about 25 or 30 of them, who have risen to the top and deserve to be honored and recognized.
We have a number of dignitaries and candidates for high office here with us tonight. We're going to announce those at the next portion of the program. But I wanted to move on to an important kind of what I guess we would regard as the keynote address tonight, because we wanted to give him as much time as we could. And that'll be the address by the executive director of this organization. That's the Reverend Gene Mills. He doesn't really need a lot of introduction to most of you because he's a friend to the family and a friend to all of us. And he's been doing this in Louisiana for a long, long time. He's an ordained minister and a highly sought-after motivational speaker, and he's brought years of working on pro-family and pro-life issues to the Family Forum. He was appointed as its first executive director when the organization was begun in 1999, so he's been at the helm ever since, and he's done a fantastic job, as you all know. Previously, he founded and directed the Chi Alpha campus outreach at LSU and the Women's Resource Center there, where they helped women in crisis pregnancy situations and other matters like that. And then he became the statewide director of the Heartbeat of Louisiana, which was a networking organization of churches and like-minded organizations around the state. They did fantastic work. And since he's been at LFF, he really has built the organization, I think, to be legitimately referred to as not just a voice for traditional families in Louisiana, but I think most of us could attest to the fact that it is really the voice for traditional families in Louisiana. As you know, it's a nonprofit research and education organization, and they're associated with international organizations and effective groups that you know, Family Research Council in Washington, D.C., that's headed by our good friend and former state legislator Tony Perkins, as well as Focus on the Family out in Colorado Springs, and 40 other state-level family policy councils just like this that work in coordination around the country to advance pro-family values. Gene's other accomplishments include syndication of the Louisiana Family Minute, which is a lively broadcast that's now on more than 50 stations throughout the state. He's created this ambassador's curriculum that's become a catalyst for faith-based institutions to engage the culture and restore our biblical foundations, and we all know how important that is today. Gene is married to Blanche, as you all know, and she was the 2003 Louisiana Mother of the Year, and she well deserved it because they've got 8 children, as you know, 5 sons and 3 daughters. All right. I could go on all night, but I shouldn't because he needs all the time I can give him. So let me bring up the Reverend Gene Mills.
2015 has been an extraordinary year. It's been a busy year for the Louisiana Family Forum. In January, we hosted, in conjunction with the governor of this great state of Louisiana, Bobby Jindal, The Response. You may remember, we had close to 8,000 people in the Pete Maravich Assembly Center crying out to God, asking for his favor and grace upon our state. Can I get a better amen? Amen. That was done in January in conjunction with the Louisiana Life March, which will come back around this January, both in the North and the South. I encourage you to be a part of that. In February, we honored the longest known married couple in the state of Louisiana, Lawrence and Vary Player of Benton, Louisiana, married 80 years. How about that? In March, we hosted a survey that was a statewide survey. It cost us a great deal of money in hopes that we could pass Mike's bill, House Bill 707, the Marriage and Conscience Act. And while 70% of the population felt like it was necessary and a necessary protection in light of what the Supreme Court may rule, the Louisiana legislature and its leadership decided it was best that it went away. We're going to talk more about that later. In April, we launched the extraordinary session of the 2015 legislature. In June, we did the Over the Edge for Adoption Rappel. If you weren't a part of that, you snoozed and you lose. We went over the tallest building in downtown Baton Rouge to call attention to the kids who are in foster care, get this, who are adoption eligible, but who have not yet been matched with a family. I'm going to give you an update on what we're doing with the state of Louisiana and that particular issue in a matter of moments. But that was an extraordinary event. In July, we hosted and launched our 2015 Louisiana Cultural Indicators Report. It's an 80-page document that highlights some 60 social issue concerns, and it takes a picture and provides for the reader, in our case, policymakers, parents, pastors, a snapshot of life in Louisiana. And I got to tell you, for far too many, that life is not as high a quality as I think God and most of us in this room would hope for our young people. We're going to do something about that, I hope. In August, we hosted the Louisiana Family Forum Leadership Academy. Here we are in September, hosting you tonight. And man, what can I say? What a fine crowd. In October, we're going to launch a virtual voter guide. It's our hope this year that we're going to reach every single Louisiana voter. We need your help to do that. This is a virtual voter guide. It's zip code driven, so it tells you what your particular race should look like when you step into the ballot box. And it's a tool that's capable of forwarding to your friends or to your list. And we would encourage you to utilize that tool. This year has been a very busy year. Can I get a better amen? Last year, I brought you a very optimistic report. of where we are in the state of Louisiana and our progress, tonight I feel compelled to bring you an update, a perspective, if you will, of where we are and where we go from here. Where we are. It was Thomas Paine, the father of the American Revolution, who said in what was then a booklet or a tract, what you might call it today, entitled Common Sense, who coined these words: "These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot, that's the ones that show up when it's convenient." Many of you who are in leadership understand that kind of commitment. When people commit to you at that level, it's very difficult to get anything done. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot in this crisis will shrink from the service of their country. But he that stands now deserves the love and the thanks of man and woman alike. Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered. Yet we have this consolation with us. The harder the conflict, and I would suggest to you tonight, ours is a difficult conflict. The harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. What we obtain too cheap, we esteem too lightly. It's dearness that gives everything its value. Heaven knows how to put a proper price upon its goods, and it would be strange indeed if so celestial an article as liberty or freedom should not be highly rated. In light of the recent events that threaten essential liberties to many of us in this room today, to those essential freedoms, the freedom of speech, the freedom of exercise of religion, the freedom to communicate, are in fact in jeopardy in America today. I'm reminded of a story in the Good Book which provides insight for situations similar to the ones that we're in. It was Israel, you'll recall, who had been 70 years in captivity in the nation of Babylon when Jeremiah, their pastor, he's referred to as a prophet, but really he was a pastor. He proclaimed God's word, instructed his generation with these words out of Jeremiah 29:7. "Seek the welfare of the city where I have placed you, where I have sent you into exile, and pray to the Lord on this city's behalf. For in the city's welfare, you will find your welfare." Some are here tonight, and they understand, like Professor Randy Trahan, Justice Jeff Hughes of the state Supreme Court. They understand the legal dilemma that the Obergefell decision puts us in. Literally a legal exile, post-SCOTUS. But it's not just the courts that we have a problem in America with today. I never thought I would live to see a nuclear deal with Iran that threatens the very existence of the nation of Israel and promises to start what could be World War III. I never thought I would live to see a national debt that would exceed the gross domestic product of our nation in a given year, and spending plans that are being discussed that would double it every year. Spending your children's future, and maybe the future of this nation, out of existence. I never thought I would see an American Pope land on American soil, greeted by a transgendered priest, a gay bishop, or nuns who are advocates of abortion as part of the administration's welcoming committee. I never thought I would live to see these kind of activities. I never thought I would live to see an Army action plan that names an openly homosexual Eric Fannin to the Secretary of Army, who advocated for years in a lesser position for open transgenderism in the military and prevailed. I never thought I would live to see the dishonorable discharge of a decorated war hero, Army Ranger Sergeant First Class Charles Martland, who intervened in the rape of a 12-year-old boy at the hands of a male Afghani policeman that by day he had to train on a U.S. base in Afghanistan, and he was dismissed from the military for his conduct. I never thought I would live to see that. Anybody that tells you that evil doesn't exist in America today doesn't understand the battle and the conflict that we're in the midst of right now.
The media, the ACLU, the irreligious are aiming at private and parochial colleges next. I understand Dr. William Hall is here from the Louisiana College tonight. Dr. Hall, they're coming after our private and parochial colleges because they believe that we're vulnerable. University of Pennsylvania Professor Peter Kahn said it this way in a publication that was printed just days ago called First Things. Religious colleges are, quote, intellectually compromised institutions in that they erect, get this, religious test for truth. We've got a secular university telling us that our private and parochial schools are intellectually compromised because they erect a standard of truth that's imposed upon people, and they're held to that standard. He goes on to say, and so should they be denied accreditation. For those of you that are not aware, accreditation is the entry point for federal subsidized student loans in America today. And when you squeeze the money supply, you squeeze the students, and you prevent that particular voice from remaining a viable voice in America. What's happening in America? A legal exile that we find ourselves in the midst of. What does it feel like to be in exile? Well, Jeremiah continued when he said, by the rivers of Babylon, there we sat, yea, we wept when we remembered Zion. Some of you remember America that was very different. Am I talking to the right audience tonight? Some of you remember a place where your grandfather and your grandmother stood and planted something, and the seed they planted, not only the heritage that you live, but the piece of ground they lived on, the principles they lived for, and the people that they represented for this generation stood for something that was honorable, stood for something that it would survive the test of this life, and it would last. We hung our instruments upon the willows in the midst of it. For those of us carried away captive were asked by our captors, sing us a song. And for those who plundered us, requested myrrh, they said, sing us one of the songs of Zion. Today your captors will tell you, entertain us. Show us your religious heritage. Show us the things that you celebrate. We want to hear it right here on these territories. But Israel answered and said, how shall we sing the song in this foreign land? If I forget you, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget its cunning. If I do not remember you, let my tongue cling to the roof of my mouth. If I do not exalt Jerusalem above all my chief joy. Psalm 137. Solomon said it in Proverbs this way, the wisest man other than Christ that ever lived. When the righteous rule, the people rejoice. But when the wicked rule, the people pay tribute. Tribute is exacted in many forms. It's exacted in the form of taxes, the loss of liberty, the loss of property, or the loss of life. Oh, Gene, I don't see that happening in America today. Then you hadn't paid attention to the conflict that plays out on your screens every evening and in your morning newspaper every morning. The commodification of fetal body parts made the news this year. Feticide for profit had its defenders. It had those that would step forward and hurry to do damage control, to secure the taxpayer underwriting of this unexplainable and indefensible action. This year, Louisiana was not exempt from the influences of the United States and its disturbing trends. We raised taxes too. But we did it at the expense of something that was very important, something that was perceptive about what the court might do, and that is to remove the police power of the state to punish men and women of faith for acting in their offices on their conscience. Our Louisiana legislature and some of its leadership said it's better not to deal with that if we're going to raise taxes, and it requires Democrats and Republicans to cooperate, that we don't deal with controversial issues that might threaten this body or those particular bills. Gender selection abortion ban by Representative Lenora Whitney was decided to be too controversial in the most pro-life state in the nation. Go figure that. I'm just here to tell you where we are. I'm here to tell you the nature of the conflict that we're in the midst of. It was the Vietnam era where they said, what would happen if they threw a war and nobody came? Well, the second stanza of the song answered the question when it said, well, then the war will come to you. Well, friends, the war has come to us. It's a culture war. It's a conflict of principle. It's a conflict between truth and error, between good and evil, between light and dark. And it's playing out every day. And some of your key agents are in the midst of that conflict. And friends, they need your prayer. They need your encouragement. We need your support in order to stay faithful in the midst of this battle that looks unwinnable. Also, a recusal resolution that would have asked the Supreme Court justices, before they decided to change and gut the definition of marriage, but had gone ahead and privately conducted same-sex marriage ceremonies, we requested that they recuse themselves because it was a conflict of interest. Those matters didn't make it to the floor. It was too controversial. Fortunately, there was leadership in place to protect liberty when the governor took his gloves off and said to Mike Johnson in his House Bill 707, we'll do this by executive order. And by the way, that's not a finished job. That sunsets at the end of the next legislative session, which means everybody who claims the name of Christ, who doesn't practice their faith at this address or one very similar to it, may be accused in the public square of doing something that would be considered either hateful or discriminatory and subject to the police power of the state. I don't know about you, but I believe we're supposed to be a witness in this generation. I don't believe we're supposed to go silent, even though the forces that are there are screaming, quiet it down, back it off. Pastor Mike, they're trying to tell us, don't communicate what you know. Don't evangelize. Don't proselytize. Don't mention the name of Christ. Don't do those things unless you're in the safety, as Samuelito said, of your own living room or sanctioned inside of the four corners of the church. So where do we go from here? We're instructed, according to Scripture, to care for and respectfully engage the culture we live in, even while we're in exile. Perhaps it would help for us to acknowledge that our brothers and sisters around the world have been doing this for centuries, if not millennia. I don't know if you've heard of the 21st man. You may have seen it 3 or 4 months ago when ISIS marched out the 21 Coptic Christians and knelt them down and for the world to see, taped the beheadings of them. Before each were beheaded, they were given the opportunity to renounce the name of Christ. When they got to one of the men in the room, he looked up and he said, I'm not a Christian. But if Christ is as good as these men who have stood with me and cared for my soul in the midst of this time, really, as they say he is, then I make Jesus my Lord right now. That was at the guarantee of a beheading and the promise of walking free. Perhaps the current conflict that we're in the midst of pales in comparison to our Coptic Christian brothers and sisters around the world who understand religious persecution at a different level. Somebody's morality is on display in every single law, in every single ordinance, and in every policy enacted, in every court decision. Ideas really do have consequences. If you don't believe that, consider the implications of this idea. Hath God said? That's been the enemy's tool, primary tool, since the beginning of time. The good news in Louisiana is we still do believe God speaks, amen? We do still believe that God's Spirit moves upon a people that cry out to Him. I was talking to one of the men at my table earlier. Governor Bobby Jindal called a prayer rally for our police officers. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but the only situation I understand Sheriff Jeff Wiley is here. Why don't you give it up for the police in our midst and also those who protect us daily? There was a shootout in St. Tammany 2 days ago where the gunman pulled a gun and fired twice on a police officer. That was after the prayer meeting where I believe we closed the door and said, no longer in the state of Louisiana, God, you bring your umbrella of protection over our law enforcement again. The police returned fire and took the man down. Our guy did not get wounded. Will you agree with me that that's what will transpire in the state of Louisiana as we begin to join ourselves to righteous causes, to a prayer initiative that cries out to God to return to our state the things that we call precious, that God calls His? We still enjoy the power to elect, the power to evaluate, and the power to educate, as well as the privilege to serve. America is witnessing an imitation or an intimidation campaign that's designed to silence the believer and the faithful and to punish those who won't go quietly. The court's granting of same-sex marriage didn't intensify or didn't just intensify a cultural debate. It empowered the 1% with a legal weapon to silence or criminalize any opposition. And don't think that they won't come knocking on our door to say, you can't say that, you can't think that, you cannot exercise your faith in that capacity. The debate was not held and won. A winner was declared by 5 unelected, unaccountable Supreme Court justices who said that they knew better than the tens of millions in the respective states that said otherwise. By the way, this is not an infallible court. It's reversed itself over 250 times or been reversed by the will and the actions of the people throughout the course of American history. Can I get a better amen? This is not the time to go quiet or to go hide or to sit back. This is the time to engage. This is the time to understand. Our lawmakers are going to be put in a precarious situation when they're told this is inevitable and the forces are brought to bear against them. I guess the question will be, will our intercessors be covering them in prayer? Will we be encouraging them with words of courage and encouragement to stand and to stay true? So-called non-discrimination laws will be next, along with adoption rights. And anybody who believes that our homosexual friends haven't lined up at the Department of Social Services and tried to adopt every single child they can get their hands on is just not understanding the nature of this battle. That's the only way they propagate this thing, is that they have access to somebody else's child. Employment rights will come next, and who knows, maybe even hiring quotas. Have I gotten your attention tonight? See, the nature of the battle is not pretty. Has Louisiana stood firmly? Yes. Are we influenced and affected by what's going on nationally? Absolutely. But I'll remind you tonight, the free man is the one who can say to those who imagine themselves to be all-powerful, I will not. The free man is the one who says, I will not be controlled, I object, I will not be forced, I will resist if necessary. Can I get a better amen? Amen. If we resist domination, we are indomitable. That's freedom, friend. And that's the article that was handed you by both the patriots and the martyrs who stood for something that was greater than our next breath or that next opportunity. It's the opportunity to communicate to a generation a truth that transcends lesser truths and that warrants our defense. Both patriot and martyr testified to this freedom in a powerful way. It was the confessing church. I want you to say that with me. The confessing church. That's what they called them in Hitler's Germany. Others who misunderstood them called them the resistance. But they were led by pastors, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, Colonel von Strassenberg, Niemöller. You may have seen the movie that depicts Valkyrie, the efforts to end the evil in that particular nation. There's a monument to those men and women. There's a monument to those who stand. It's a brass plate that's planted in Berlin that reads this: you do not bear the shame, you resisted. You do not bear the shame, you resisted. You sacrificed your life for freedom, for justice, for honor. The German Resistance Memorial in Berlin, Germany. Freedom is not a man-made article, and as such, it does not rest upon earthly powers for authority, for accreditation, or for validity. Government may regulate, holders of wealth may seduce, bureaucracies may coerce, and courts may punish. It's always been that way, friend. I don't care who told you different. But wealth and political power do not create a single thing that lasts, or that lasts for eternity. Faith in Jesus Christ has proven to be the most powerful and enduring force in human history. Paul told the Corinthian church of his day, you don't need letters of commendation. You are our written message to this generation. You are Christ's letter to this generation, not written on tablets of stone or pieces of paper, but written by the breath of God and the Spirit of God upon men's hearts. That's where he places it. And that's a place governments cannot violate if you stand true. Louisiana lawmakers who are here tonight, you stood out from the crowd. You stood in a different place, and we honor you tonight for your votes for faith, family, and freedom. Can I get a better amen on that? Still, there's much work to do, and that work has kingdom implications. The Marriage and Religious Freedom Restoration Act by Mike Johnson needs to be enacted in the next legislative session. The gender selection abortion ban by Lenore Whitney needs to be enacted in the next legislative session. Student tuition funding for our kids who have the opportunity to attend a private, parochial, or community-operated school needs to be written into the budget next legislative session. And to our lawmakers who are here, I would encourage you, before you consider a single tax, I ask you to seek an audit of the duplicative programs that are in the 47 institutions of higher education in the state of Louisiana. I think you'll find there's a lot of room for improvement and the cost involved with that. And before you consider a constitutional convention to dededicate or undedicate funds, ask John Kennedy on the 6th floor of the Treasury Department how they did it under the Romer administration with 280 separate funds and no constitutional convention. I believe we can liberate this next legislative session of lawmakers to do what they need to do. Will you pray for them in this endeavor? Will you agree to stand with them as they take on these tough choices? Can I get a better amen? Amen. To the Louisiana lawmakers who are here, to the Louisiana pastors who are here, your communication at this time is essential to the success of this generation. When you go silent, you're saying that these matters that I've just touched upon are not really matters that the church cares about or that the faith community can speak to. And I think we do a disservice to the next generation. You ask the next generation, what's wrong with America today? And you often hear, I don't know, and I don't care. What does that got to do with me? Friends, we're about to experience one of the greatest transfers of wealth that has ever occurred in America. The World War II generation's dying at a rapid pace. And they're handing off what they stood for, what they fought for, what they represented to a generation that just doesn't get it. And unless we begin to teach them how to grasp it, how to understand it, how to protect it, and how to advance that faith, guess what? This nation's days are numbered. You say, man, that's a heavy message to bring at a Louisiana Legislative Awards Gala. I can't help it. I've had a heavy heart. Buddy Caldwell, where are you? Where's Buddy? Buddy, stand up. I've had a heavy heart since we got back from the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. And Mike Johnson and Kyle Duncan argued our marriage case to a belligerent panel of 3 that said, we'll have none of this. But you stood principally, and I appreciate that. Thank you for your stand for marriage. I've had a heavy heart since June, where I watched our nation gut the definition and the meaning of marriage, and understand there's not a stitch of public policy that we deal with that's not impacted by that decision. Do we have to give equal time now? Equal access? Equal employment opportunities? What does it mean to men and women of faith? What does it mean to the faith community? I don't know. What does it mean to you that a heritage has been handed to you, and a generation that's coming, my children and grandchildren, may not have the same opportunities unless we do what we do with a spirit of excellence? Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for helping me to welcome these lawmakers. We're going to be acknowledging them in a matter of moments. I felt like I had to tell you what God has burdened my heart with. Where do we go from here? I don't know about you, but I'm going to go large, I'm going to go loud, and I'm going to go big for God. Amen? Is there the prospect of success? Man with God, a man or a woman who trusts God, those two are a majority. Anything can happen. I trust and believe that God will do something in our great state and in this nation. And I don't know if it's going to be the next election. Some people say, well, presidents don't do this. Elected officials don't do this. I would tend to agree, but they have to cooperate with the leadership so that it can be done. There's a cooperation that comes about when we stand in a principled place and we stand next to and amongst principled men and women, and we stand for something that really counts. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for standing with the Louisiana Family Forum, and thank you for helping me to honor these Louisiana lawmakers and those who are seeking the upcoming office. Let's honor them now. Mike Johnson.
Okay, on with the program. Now, look, if you'll turn to your hymnal, this is it, in the middle, right in the middle, you'll see the 2015 Family Advocates. Now, this is the first category of awards, and you'll see there to receive the Family Advocate Award, a legislator earns a great distinction. They have to achieve more than an 80% rating on this year's LFF annual scorecard, which is a series of votes that were determined to be scored there, and they have to vote more than 50% of the time, so it's a high bar, and the recipients of this award on both the Senate and the House side are listed there in the middle page of your program. Many of them have been able to be with us tonight, so we wanted to give a little quick biographical info as they come up. And let me ask, if you are an award recipient tonight, you know that already, if you could make your way over to the green room, we're going to try to keep the program moving. Now, on the House side, the Family Advocate Award recipients this year, we're not going to do this in alphabetical order because it's the same every year. I've just switched it up. We literally shuffled the deck. So the first one we're going to bring out is State Representative Paul Hollis. And as he comes, I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. Paul is an award-winning author. We went to school together at LSU many years ago, and he achieved a lot of academic distinctions, and he cherishes the values he was raised on: family, community, hard work, honesty, putting others above self. After graduating from LSU in '94 with a degree in poli-sci, he put his passion for history and coin collecting to work in the private sector, and he became a specialist in rare coins for Louisiana's largest coin dealer. He follows his father, Ken, who was elected to the legislature. He was in 2011. He's married to Ashley Hollis, and they have 2 children, and he assisted all of us this year, as you may have heard, by test driving the new security bollards in the Capitol parking lot. If you followed that, he used his Audi for that purpose. It was quite a story. Okay, next. Thank you, Paul. A round of applause for Paul Hollis. Next is Raymond Garofalo. Representative Garofalo is a solid pro-business and traditional values conservative, and he firmly believes in reducing the size of government and vows to aggressively work toward the core goals of reducing spending and lowering taxes, and he does it consistently. He's a successful business attorney and property investor, and I owe him a great debt of gratitude for standing strong with me on a tough religious liberty vote in this session, so I'll always owe him for that in the Civil Law Committee. Thank you for that. State Representative Greg Miller is next. He's a Republican, member of the House, represents District 56. He was first elected to the chamber in 2011, also a legacy in the House. He received a bachelor's in poli-sci from LSU in Baton Rouge and a law degree from LSU as well. And he serves on the Retirement Committee, Civil Law, and the House and Governmental Affairs Committees. And I sat next to him all year, and he taught me the ropes, so I'm grateful for that. Representative Miller, thank you so much. Representative Julie Stokes is here. She is a CPA and works in her family's business, Stokes & Associates. Throughout her career, she's been engaged in community service and actively involved with the Jefferson Chamber of Commerce and UNO and the Louisiana Society of CPAs and various other local economic development activities. She resides in Kenner with her husband Larry and their 2 children, and she's lived in Jefferson Parish all of her life. She graduated with a bachelor's in accounting magna cum laude from UNO, and she's our trusted voice on the budget and all things financial, so she's a great asset to the House. Thank you, Julie. Representative Blake Miguez is a newcomer to the House this year. He was elected for his first term, and he's a lifelong resident of Iberia Parish. He's a small business owner, Acadiana philanthropist. He works in the oil and gas industry as an executive, and he has a passion for creating jobs and fighting to protect gun rights and investing in bettering our future generations. He's a husband and a father, and he has a law degree. Probably the coolest thing of all, though, is he's a world champion marksman on the gun range. So you don't want to mess with him. Yeah, Blake Miguez, thanks so much. Robert Johnson, State Representative Robert Johnson is here. He was first elected in 2007 to the House. He's admitted to Louisiana Bar in 2000. He graduated from Loyola with his undergrad, poli-sci, in 97. He spent time at the University of Vienna Law School in Austria for a year in 1999. And he came home to serve Avoyelles Parish as Assistant DA for 3 years. He's a president of the Knights of Columbus down there and is a Avoyelles Parish teen court judge. He serves on a number of committees and is a great voice in the House. Thanks so much, Robert. Now, the Family Advocate Awards on the Senate side, we have a number of recipients. You see there, or at least a few of them there on your page. With us tonight is State Senator A.G. Crow, and as he comes up, I'll tell you, he's a familiar face. Yeah, go ahead and give him a round of applause. He calls the Louisiana Capitol a mission field, and it is, and he's the president of the new Louisiana International Gulf Transfer Terminal, which is a $2 billion Louisiana port project that will bring over 34,000 jobs to Louisiana. He started a neat, yeah, well, we'll applaud that too, yeah. He started a company called the File Depot that now has locations in 9 states and is growing. He's the chairman of Labor and Industrial Relations and serves on a number of other committees. Just a great champion for the family. Thanks, AG. All right, now if you flip over a page, you'll see the next category of awards is the 2015 Outstanding Family Advocates. Now, you see at the bottom there, it says to receive this award, a legislator has to earn a 100% rating on the scorecard by voting 50% of the time. And for that distinction, LFF awards their courage by giving each of them a specifically commissioned bust of Patrick Henry, the founder who famously shouted, "Give me liberty or give me death." So on the House side, we have with us tonight the Cookie Man, State Representative Henry Burns, and we call him that. It's an affectionate term up in North Louisiana. He owned a restaurant called the Wooden Spoon Bakery, which is an iconic place up there. He's a former Bossier School Board member and an entrepreneur, and he works in the oil and gas industry. Henry is an affable fellow. He was titled the 2014 Gentleman of the House, given the Hudson Award, which gave him a chance to help a Louisiana cause of his choice, and he donated those proceeds to the Bossier Parish Ag and 4-H Department. He just does a lot of good up in our neck of the woods, and I found out today when I was reading his bio that he graduated, he got a master's from Pepperdine University. And I said, Henry, why don't you put that on your push cards and stuff? And he said, oh, I'm just, he's just too humble to do it. But he made a 4.0. He was the speaker at his graduation at Pepperdine. Please put it on your card, Henry. Okay. Next is Representative Brett Guyman. He's also a small business owner, a Sunday school teacher, a family man from Lake Charles area. He's married to his wife, Kim, and earned his bachelor's at McNeese and learned how to crunch numbers with the best of them there. And so he serves us very well on the Appropriations Committee, the Budget Committee, where he puts his passion for the budget process to work. He's a leader of those of us who consider ourselves fiscal hawks, and a member of the Republican delegation, the Rural Caucus, the Acadiana delegation, and just a very strong voice for fiscal conservatism in the House. We're so grateful for him. Thanks. Bob Henskins is up as well, and he was a partner in the battle over the Common Core thing with Representative Guyman, and he serves District 47 of Cameron and Vermilion parishes. He was first elected to the House through a special election in 2011, ran unopposed in 2012. He's a member also of the Acadiana delegation and Louisiana Republican delegation, and he has degrees from ULL and is a managing partner in a healthcare company, MH3F. He was also the former mayor of the town of Guidon, where he lives with his wife, Nancy, and is a great leader for the state. Thanks so much. Guidon. North Louisiana kid, you can't give him the pronunciation guide. Okay. Barry Ivy's next. Barry Ivy, in his bio, in all caps at the top, it says pro-gun. Okay, we get it. He prides himself on his conservative pro-gun, pro-life family values standards. In this recent session, he authored several important pieces of legislation, including a reduced fee for active or veteran service members purchasing a concealed carry permit. In his first 2 sessions, he truly hit the ground running as a voice for life as well. He and his wife, Julie, have been married for over 16 years. They reside in Central with their 4 children. Thanks so much, Barry, for all you do. J. Rogers Pope is our next state representative. He has served 38 years as Livingston Parish educator. He's retired now, but 14 of those years he was the superintendent of schools there. He's been married to Pat Dixon Pope, and they have 2 children and 6 grandchildren together. Received numerous awards in education as a superintendent and an educator, and graduated Denham Springs High School. He has a master's plus 30 from SLU, and has just been a great leader for a long time for us in the House. Thank you so much, Representative Pope. Lenore Whitney is next. She's a Houma native, lifelong Republican. She recognized the value of conservative governance before the Reagan Revolution began. So she registered as a Republican in 1977 when I was 5. But that's okay. She's also a longtime businesswoman and has operated a small business continually since she was 16 years old, and she understands the value of hard work. Her business was a dance company that she owned and operated for 34 years. And she's currently the Louisiana Republican National Committee woman. She's married to Lee Whitney, one of Houma's most talented artisans, and has 2 children, both graduates of LSU. Thanks so much for all you do. I'm on that list too, but that's kind of boring. Okay, the Outstanding Family Advocate Senators. John Smith is with us. Senator Smith has been married to his wife Pam for 48 years, and they have 2 children and 2 grandchildren. He got his BS and his MBA from Loyola, and he was one of the senior executives, listen to this, in state and local government at the John F. Kennedy School of Government at Harvard. Also should be on your push card, I think. Current chairman of the Energy Council, and was elected to the Senate in 2012. Thanks so much, Senator, for all you do. Senator Mike Walsworth is with us. He's a Oh, Neil Reiser's here. Okay. He's presiding. I'm not even looking over my shoulder. Okay, he's an avid outdoorsman, and he and his wife, Vicki Smith Reiser, have 2 children, Emily and Allison. He's an '84 graduate of Northeast, ULM, we call it now, in business management, and he currently serves on the Republican State Central Committee, and he's the president and an owner of Reiser Funeral Homes. He serves on a number of committees. He's the chair of Revenue and Fiscal Affairs, and has just been a great voice in the Senate for a long time. Thank you so much, Senator Reiser. Now Mike Walsworth. All right, okay. Lifelong resident of Northeast Louisiana. He has 1 daughter and a son-in-law, Jeff Cobb. He's married to Dawn Smith Walsworth, and together they have 4 sons, Chris, Zach, Caden, and Corbin. He has 2 grandsons and a granddaughter. They're growing the family there. He's one of the longest-serving members of his area delegation, and he believes in his obligation to serve that entire region and the state. He's first elected to the House in '95 and to the Senate in 2007, and is the chair of the Environmental Quality Committee and vice chair of Senate and Governmental Affairs. Thanks for all you do.
I know you can't hear me, but I've got a big mouth. But I want to thank Gene especially for those kids who are up for adoption, who are foster kids. Go out there and look at that heart. They will tug on you. No greater love can you show one of these kids than to say, I want you. Go out there and do something for these kids. They need to be adopted. They're our kids. And Gene, thanks for standing up for these kids. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you. That's even more important than the silent auction. That's right. All right. The Life and Liberty Awards are I had to plug the silent auction again. The Life and Liberty Awards are next, and you see there in your hymnal. They're presented each year to legislators who authored and successfully passed key legislation that promotes life and liberty. And this is the special distinction for something that really was heroic in the session. So you see the recipients there on the page, but with us tonight, one of my dear friends, State Representative Katrina Jackson, who's coming up. Now she is, yeah, we'll give her a hand on the way out, I guess. She was elected to the State House in 2011, and in 2014, she authored HB 388, which many of you know as the bill that requires abortion providers to have admitting privileges to a hospital within 30 miles of their clinics. But this year, her big distinction was House Bill 635, which preserved funding for student tuition organizations so that we can give children educational opportunity. She's the chair of the Black Caucus and a great leader for the Democrat Party, and just a dear friend. She's a lawyer, one of the brightest people in the House, and just an all-around great lady. So thanks so much, Katrina, for all you do. Representative John Schroeder is a recipient of the award tonight as well, and he served as a special agent in the U.S. Army. He's a real estate agent, a home builder, and a developer, and he and his wife Ellie have 2 children. So this year, his big distinction that he's being honored for tonight was HB 542, which was the big deal that you read about, to phase out Common Core testing, and it was quite a long battle that he led ably. So thanks so much for all your hard work for education and for the kids. Representative Julie Stokes, she's already been out here once, but she gets an award tonight for House Bill 489, and this was a heroic piece of legislation because it criminalized revenge porn, which is a sad, unfortunate trend, especially with this millennials. And so it's now a crime in Louisiana for you to do that to an someone in a relationship or what have you. So great piece of legislation. It's going to serve as a model for other states, and she's well deserving of this award for all she does. Thanks so much. Representative Thomas Wilmot is the last one with us tonight to receive the award. Now, he's a nurse and a lawyer, and so he brings a lot of wealth of expertise to the House, and he's demonstrated interest in alleviating the staffing shortage in health care and has just done a lot of great work in that arena. So he's being awarded for tonight is HB 603, which is a bill to strengthen the safe haven law for unwanted children and all of that. So we just want to give him appropriate applause for that hard work on that important bill. Thanks so much.
If people have questions about the Louisiana Family Forum, how can they get in touch with you?
They can go to our website at lafamilyforum.org, and they can learn probably more information than they possibly knew existed. We put a bunch of our position papers up there, plus videos, plus the things that we're involved in. Next month, they'll be able to do it with a voter guide that we're creating. That's a viral voter guide by visiting LouisianaVoterGuide.org, and there they can type in their zip code and find out which candidates are running for office and where they stand on key positions.